Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. Before we get started, please hit that subscribe button, like, and afterwards, of course, please comment and let me know what you think. I'm wearing a University of Michigan shirt, so go blue for all you Michigan fans out there. And for the haters, I just don't want to hear from you. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about rigidity and flexibility of mind. Mostly on rigidity, because that's more of my expertise here. Now, there is a positive correlation between flexibility and mental health, which means that the more flexible you are mentally, I'm not talking about like you can do splits, I'm talking about flexibility of mind. So the more flexible you are, the better your mental health will be. I am more of a rigid person. Rigid is the opposite of flexible. So I'll give you examples of how I am rigid to show you and let you understand. So, among other things, when it comes to instructions, when I'm given instructions, I feel like I have to follow them to the letter, that everyone participating with me has to follow them to the letter, and if we don't, we're gonna get in trouble, something's not gonna be done right, and the whole thing's just gonna be a big mess. And it gets me really anxious. So that's rigidity. Even where maybe there's a better way to do something, if I'm told to do it a certain way, or if the directions say to do it a certain way, even if someone says, hey Annie, it'll be better and faster and more efficient to do it another way, I still will probably not do it the better way because the instructions say to do it the other way. Now, that stems from a couple things. Some of it stems the way I was brought up, the people I grew up around. Other things about it have to do with a fear of getting in trouble. I have a pretty intense fear of getting in trouble, blame being put on me, doing something wrong. So that's a big deal to me, and that is a huge reason why I'm so rigid when it comes to instructions. I want things done right. I also struggle with being a perfectionist. That can also be a talk for another time, but being a perfectionist is not good for your mental health. Also, when it comes to even schoolwork, reading textbooks, I'm gonna turn around here. I feel like when I'm reading my textbook and studying, I have to read every letter of the book. I do not have to. In fact, it's almost impossible to read an entire textbook among all the other college work I have to do, and it just puts so much unneeded stress. I'm just filling my mind with so much information that I don't need, and people will tell me, Annie, you don't need to read the whole textbook. You're not expected to read the whole textbook. And that makes sense to me, and I know they're right, but I still get filled with so much anxiety and stress that I still feel like I have to. I've been working on it and trying to read it less of the textbook that I know I don't need, and it's been getting better. It's still a big struggle for me. I've been struggling with that since middle school. Another thing with that is that I want to do really well in school, so I feel like if I miss part of it, well, that part I didn't read beyond the test or the quiz, and it makes school a lot harder than it needs to be. And every time I end up taking that test, I realize, wow, I studied way too much. It was just a big waste of time. So yeah, that's rigidity. Those are parts of rigidity that I really struggle with. Even when it comes to pleasure reading, honestly, I'm pleasure reading for goodness sakes, but still I feel like I have to read every stinking part of the book I'm reading. I could be reading some book and it's just talking 20 minutes about how green the trees are, and I still feel like I need to read the full 20 pages about the trees being green, and really I don't need to. That was just the author's choice to write that much about the trees being green. It's pleasure reading. I don't want to read about the trees being green, but yeah, I still feel like I have to. I'm under some moral obligation to, and that is honestly not true, and I know that. So I can also be very rigid when it comes to doing things the way I want them. I expect other people to do them the way I think they should, because that's maybe what the instructions say, and that's putting unnecessary strain on other people that doesn't need to be there. People end up getting irritated with me, understandably so. because honestly it's kind of just being a bit of a control freak because I'm so afraid of something going wrong if we dare think a little more critically and add some interpretation to what we're doing. Personal style is something that I don't usually participate in, even though I should. I feel like I'd enjoy what I do a lot more if I did. So some rigidity is good. Some rigidity may just be you standing up for your beliefs very strongly, which can be a very good thing. I'm not saying don't be rigid at all. Some rigidity is fine. But the rigidity I'm talking about is not very good for you. And it's something I don't really like about myself. Therefore, instead of just beating myself up about it, I'm going to try and change it. And I'm going to start small. I get stressed out easily. So in order to make some nice positive changes to be a little bit more flexible, I'm going to try some things here. I came up with a good idea to try and reduce my rigidity, increase my flexibility. And my idea is that during my pleasure reading, try to intentionally skip maybe a few sentences at a time, maybe a paragraph at a time that I feel like I do know that is not really necessary for me to get the story and enjoy the book. So what I did is I started reading The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. It's a pretty easy book. It's a classic that I'd never read, so I figured start with that. It's not something I'm super invested in, but it's still a book that I would like to read because it is so famous and I've never read, I don't think I've even read Mark Twain before. So I started reading Huckleberry Finn, and the first time I picked up that book to read it, I was reading, and when I found maybe sections of the book, sentences, paragraphs of the book that I felt not important, they're just talking about like him floating down the stream on his raft, I'd skip it. I'd skip it and not look back. I mean, sometimes I would go back and I would start reading it again, but I had to gently tell myself, Annie, that you're working on this. It's okay that, you know, you're tempted to go back and read every single word and letter of the book. But I took my time, deep breaths, and I would skip it and continue reading. It did make me anxious. And for all of you who don't understand what I'm really talking about, you might think this is kind of silly and dumb. But for those of you who do struggle with this rigidity, it's hard. It's actually really hard to just even skip a couple sentences of the author speaking about how you put a raft, how the raft is put into the stream, and how Huckleberry gets on and goes down. It's nothing important, but to just skip that is really hard. But you know what? I did it and I felt good. I'm still working on it. I'm going to try and work on it in little things I do during the day. I'm still struggling. It still makes me anxious sometimes. I even get irritable, but you know, I'm working on it, and that's what matters. So the reason I made this video is to encourage you to change things that you don't like about yourself, and there's someone behind me, that's kind of creepy, to change things that you don't like about yourself, and in a gentle, compassionate way, and to show you that rigidity can have a lot of harm in your life, and that you want to try and be more flexible, and baby steps, kids. Alright, that's all I got. Thank you. Comment, like, subscribe, and of course, thanks for watching. Bye bye.